How do you follow up the awesomeness that was Mad Max the Road Warrior? You get Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, a very just. This is a boring movie. I'm just gonna say flat out. Beyond Thunderdome, the third and final installment into the original Mad Max trilogy, featuring Mel Gibson, is a boring slugfest of a movie to sit through. This movie had a lot of potential going into it, but it falls off the rails in the second act, and from then on, it's just okay. You can tell this movie is got that Hollywood glamorization to it. You can tell this movie just feels completely off when you compare it to the first movie and The Road Warrior, which were two just down and dirty, gritty, just balls to the wall action movies. You know, if someone were to tell me, "Hey, do you want to watch a Mad Max movie?" I'm gonna get the image of like the Road Warrior, pretty much like this balls to the wall, heavy metal rump. Instead, Beyond Thunderdome is the antithesis of that. Now, that's not to say all this movie is bad, but the majority of it is just bleh. Pretty much. Max goes to this place called Bartertown. He meets up with the overseer of this place called Auntie Entity, played by Tina Turner. Why Tina Turner's in a movie like this is beyond me. Her soundtrack is featured within this movie, and like I said, it gives it just a completely just PG-13 tone to it. This movie just feels so just light. It feels very soft. It feels very tame. And not only that, to me, it just feels like these people just did not want to make this movie. If this movie feels like a movie that just has the word Mad Max in it just to sell some tickets. Because this movie, to me, doesn't have the heart of the first two movies. It's like an empty void of movies. So, so let's just try and get this rolling. The first act of this movie is actually not that bad. It's pretty solid. Seeing Max's adventures in Bartertown and just seeing the overall look of Bartertown is actually pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I think the production design of Bartertown is actually really cool. I actually liked how in the Wasteland they were able to get some form of a community up and running, and they deal pretty much in trades. That's how they keep everything going, and they're run by methane, which they get from, in the movie, pig shit. They get methane from pig shit. So pretty much Max makes a deal with Aunt Auntie to get some fuel, food, and water, but he has to pick a fight and then win in Thunderdome, which he eventually picks a fight with this character called Blaster, who is handled by this other character called Master, and they get into Thunderdome. They have a pretty entertaining brawl, but after Max refuses to kill Blaster, he gets siphoned off into the desert where he meets up with a bunch of kids, and all of a sudden we get Mad Max in Peter Pan / Lord of the Flies for the entire second act of this movie, and that's where this movie really falls off the rails, and I'm just not invested whatsoever. Completely not invested at all. Once Mad Max is pretty much exiled from Bartertown, he should have met up with the Great North Tribe from the Road Warrior. He should have met up with the Gyro Captain. Bruce Spence is in this movie, but as a completely different character. He's not playing the Gyro Captain. If you're gonna have Max team up with a kid, have him team up with the have him team up with the failed kid who'll be a little older. You know, instead of Max coming across Gyro Captain and the failed kid, he comes across these Lord of the Flies, Lost Boys from Peter Pan kids, and I'm just not invested whatsoever. This movie would have been much better if the second act would have had Max see allies that he established in the previous movie, and also this movie also has a rivalry between the character of Master, played by Angela Rosito, who's actually pretty good in this movie, and Tina Turner, though I think she's out of place. Her performance ain't horrible. She does a good job for what she has to do. But this movie says that Master and Auntie Entity have a rivalry over control of Bartertown, and the second act should have focused more on that rivalry, especially when Master's right-hand man Blaster is completely taken out of the equation. I'd have liked to see more of that rivalry develop, really humbling the Master character into a more humble character, and him having more of a reason to team up with Max when he eventually comes back to Bartertown. Instead, we do get that to an extent with Master, but it's with these Lost Boys that I don't care about. this, like I said, the second act should have had Max find the Jarrow captain, who at this point would have been in charge of the Great Northern Tribe, and the Pharaoh kid would have been a little bit more older since this movie takes place almost 20 years since the Road Warrior. Maybe the little Pharaoh kid would have been the leader. I don't know. Anyway, those characters should have at least came back for this movie. I would have stomached it a little more, and it would have been made more sense instead of just wasting a good chunk of time with Max interacting with these kids who keep calling him Captain Walker and thinks he's going to save them and bring them to civilization. It's completely just a waste of time. It does absolutely nothing for me. The third act is at least mildly entertaining. The vehicle chase scenes are okay. They're absolutely nothing, and they're tame and very slapsticky when compared to the first two Mad Max movies. So yeah, Beyond Thunderdome, to me, this movie is a complete antithesis of what the Mad Max series was up to this point. The first two movies were gritty and balls to the wall. This one is like Mad Max meets the Care Bears in a way. It's just completely just off-putting when you watch it, especially when you marathoning these movies from the first movie down to the Beyond Thunderdome. But again, from a production standpoint, the movie looks fine. From a directorial standpoint, George Miller always does a good job. And that's pretty much it. Those are my thoughts on Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. It's going to get a 6.5 out of 10 for me. It's not a horrible movie. It does have some quality to it, but that second act really drags it down to a grinding, screeching halt. And the movie tries way too hard to ratchet up the adrenaline, but to me it does it in a very half-assed way in that third act. And the PG-13 rating really hurts this movie a lot, and it just makes it much more tame and just not as high stakes as the first two movies, which really put their R ratings to use. This movie is handcuffed by PG-13, and it clearly shows. 6.5 out of 10 for Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. It's a movie that you can skip, and you ain't gonna miss a beat, because it doesn't really add much, with the exception of a couple of good performances here and there, and a couple of okay scenes here and there. Other than that, this movie is a drag. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Beyond Thunderdome. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.